Hello and welcome to the Last Word on Spurs. We hope you're keeping very, very safe and well. Thank you ever so much for joining us for a very, 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 very late night edition of the Last Word on Spurs. One that we knew that was coming, but maybe the timing of the announcement pretty much maybe quite shocking given the nature of, how the timing has panned out. We're joined by the brilliant Matty Hayes, Blues' very own Antony Costa, Mr. Lee McQueen, Darren Hartman so far here on Last Word on Spurs as we bring to you instant reaction of Tottenham Hotspur agreeing and announcing that they have parted ways with Antonio Conte by mutual consent. So much to get into on this Last Word on Spurs. If you're listening to the show for the first time, you can find us on iTunes or on Spotify. We're across all major audio platforms. We're, of course, on Twitter at Last Word on Spurs. We're on Facebook and Instagram too. And only really one place to start, if I can. And we can only start by discussing the announcement that Tottenham Hotspur made around, I would say, 11:15, 10:30 UK time, where they put a statement out to say, we can announce that head coach Antonio Conte has left the club by mutual agreement. We achieved Champions League qualification in Antonio's first season at the club. We thank Antonio for his contribution and wish him well for the future. Cristian Stellini will take the team as acting head coach for the remainder of the season, along with Ryan Mason as assistant head coach. Daniel Levy commented on the decision and said, we have 10 Premier League games remaining and we have a fight on our hands for a Champions League place. We all need to pull together. Everyone has to step up to ensure the highest possible finish for our club and amazing, loyal supporters. Lee, got to start with you. Let's get your instant reaction to Tottenham Hotspur parting ways with Antonio Conte on this very, very late Sunday evening.
Well, I'll be honest with you, viewers and listeners, I didn't see that coming, did you? I did not think Antonio Conte would be sacked at all. No?
I'm not going to take you seriously after this.
Hello.
I thought it was going to be tomorrow.
Yeah, look, we all knew it was coming, didn't we, at the end of the day? And what we're talking about tonight is probably what we've been talking about for the last, 7-8 days, because it's taken that long to make that happen. I mean, look, in fairness, so I've given my views and the board some stick this week, finally, some might say. But in fairness, it's probably taken a long time for them to get a mutual agreement sorted, and that's obviously why it's happened 7-8 days after that outburst. But I'm absolutely gutted. I'm not going to lie. I'm absolutely gutted that it's come to this. That we are now managerless again after that debacle of 72 days without a manager, and then we appoint Nuno, and then he lasts 5 minutes, and then obviously we get Conte. And when this serial winner walked through the door, I thought, here we go. Our fortunes have turned. And to be fair, viewers and listeners and boys on the panel, they did turn around. You know, we were finishing 7th, and in the Europa Conference League, the guy came in. He's put his training regimes together. He's galvanised the club and the squad and pushed us to the top 4. He got us to top 4 last season, and you're thinking, we could go on a run here. And is he ever going to commit? It always kind of felt like that maybe he was doing us a favour. I don't know, but this season's been a nightmare. I mean, we've all had our say this week on what's going on, but we had our best ever start to a Premier League season this year, and it just doesn't feel like we're in a relegation zone. So it was inevitable. I'm not going to lie, I'm a bit disappointed that we're got an interim in charge with Stellini and Mason. I wanted a manager to come straight in and get to work, but it is what it is, boys. Isn't it? Do you know what I mean?
It is. Macca, just to give you a heads up, I'm sorry to do this because I know how late it is, that your connection is similar to the way...
There's nothing I can do, mate.
Just to give you a heads up, mate. No problem at all. Dal, let's come over to you. Look, I mean, absolutely, timing of it probably is the one thing that we're quite shocked by. But the nature of when it was coming, I think many did feel it was coming. Give me your reaction, Dal, to Antonio Conte leaving Tottenham Hotspur Football Club as of this Sunday evening.
Well, I'm glad the board pulled their finger out because, as you know, I've said it before, I didn't think they were going to sack him. I thought he was going to just make it right out till the end of the season because they didn't want to pay the compensation. But obviously, they found some common ground and they found a way that they're happy financially and they can let him go now. It's a mess, though, because the way we are right now, the way I look at it right now, Spurs fans, you can agree or disagree, we're a side that there is no vision. Like, if you're a manager coming in for an interview, What are you pitching? What are the board pitching to you? I haven't got a Scooby-Doo. I don't think they have. So who's going to really want the job? It's a really sad place because we should be a great prospect for any world manager out there. We should be a real appealing job. Someone should be biting our neck off, should be chomping at the bits to get their hands on this club. And right now, I don't know who would want to. And that's probably the saddest thing about it, to be in a situation where we're fighting for top four. We've got a wonderful stadium. We've got a squad that needs a bit of finessing to get it to the place where it needs to be. And what we have, unfortunately, is a board that doesn't have a vision for our team. And as a manager, how do you even take that job? So it's going to be, I think it's going to be another circus of how we get our new manager in. I'm not looking forward to this process. And I feel it's going to be a mess. And I'm hoping I'm wrong. I don't want to be right, but Tottenham seem to be making us all right now and making us go, it is a mess. So right now, I'm sad for Conte, if I'm honest, because as we've said, he is a serial winner. He came to win and he's not been able to achieve that. So that's a sad place to be. And whether we want to split hairs over his fault, board fault, players' fault, everyone takes a percentage. Everyone takes their lion's share of it. Everyone's got a role to play in it. But ultimately, we're the fans here who are left. Riverside that's managerless. 10 games where we don't know what kind of performances we're going to get from our side right now. And it's a very sad place to be at, 11, 10 at night. Thanks, Spurs.
Yeah. Madness. I know, Dal, you wasn't due back until Everton. They managed to get you back here earlier than what was planned. How many times we said that on Last Word on Spurs? Can't make this up. And I'm going to come over to you next. Look, I think we speak every day. You know, we very much want the club to be in a place where it can be competitive, it can be committed and give us some real hope and some real fight. I think me and you spoke for days that we all knew this was going to be coming. I think, again, the timing of it maybe tells you that you need to know just how much they were desperately trying to agree some form of compensation with Antonio, where judging by obviously him exiting the club now by mutual consent, they've done that. And give me your thoughts on the timing of it, the manner of it, and if ultimately we have made the right decision ahead of these next 10 games to come in.
I think we was all expecting it. I think when Lee started talking tonight, I thought it was going to be tomorrow because obviously the players are due back Tuesday. And I think to myself, it's the wrong time and it's 10:30 at night. We're here doing a show, twiddling our thumbs going, who's going to be the next manager? I think the way it's been dealt with is a bit lastminute.com. But listen, as Darren said, Spurs doesn't surprise me anymore. This club should be a club where managers are wanting to come to this club, but the way it's been done over the last 3-4 years since Poch left, it's been an absolute disaster. And I've read today, I think it was on Last Word on Spurs Twitter. It was Poch's contract runs out this summer, so just get him back in for 10 games and then sack him again and then get someone else in. It's a mess. It's a mess. Yeah. But what can you do? What can you do? I don't know how long this manager's going to take. Personally, for me, I'd rather get a new manager in now so they can start looking at the players that they want and what they don't want, rather than come the beginning of next season, they're giving all these players that have been on loan another chance. And I keep going back to this thing of another chance. Then we're back to square one again, and then we're chasing the top four again. Rinse and repeat. TJ's absolutely spot on.
Again, a lot of people will share those frustrations. I mean, it's not too long ago, Matt, we were in a similar situation. We can't forget where Ryan Mason took the remainder of the season after the sacking of Jose Mourinho. I thought it was quite interesting. Now, of course, we're recording this show live here on Sunday evening, so we're going to be reacting to any news that comes in as soon as we get it. We understand from Matt Law of The Telegraph, many will probably say he's fairly reputable, that we understand Matt Conte gave his blessing for Cristian Stellini to stay in his absence and help Spurs attempt to achieve their goal of qualifying for the Champions League. Given the fact, Matt, that of course Stellini is Conte, was Conte's number 2, it wouldn't make you think that things have been left that terribly when you compare it to the Chelsea situation where he attempted to sue them, if it was in a situation where it was absolutely, in a horrendous relationship. I mean, give me your thoughts, Matt, firstly on the decision by the club. And then secondly, are you surprised Stellini now is going to be stepping up with Mason to manage these final remaining 10 games of the season?
Yeah, I think like everyone has alluded to, the timing of this is just bizarre. And Ricky, like I was saying to you off air before we started recording, it was the same with Jose Mourinho when he was both appointed and sacked. We got the announcement at like 7 o'clock in the morning. Even when the club gets it right, they somehow get it wrong. But it's a decision that ultimately had to be made, and I think there is a large contingent of the Tottenham fan base that do agree with that, and of course there are some that disagree with it as well. But like we mentioned on the show last week, it's not a case of the fact that we've lost some games. It's the nature in which we've lost them. It's the nature in which we went to Sheffield United, didn't lay a glove on them for 90 minutes, got knocked out of the FA Cup, going to the King Power Stadium to a Leicester team who've only won 1 or 2 games this calendar year and conceding 4 there. And then once he had that outburst after the capitulation at St Mary's last week, it became a matter of when and not if. And we've been waiting for so long that it doesn't feel like a huge, it's obviously not a huge surprise, but it doesn't feel like such a big moment because we all kind of did know that it was coming. But it is a bit of a bittersweet moment. I wanted him to be sacked with the way the last month or two went, but looking back to 16 months ago when he was appointed, this isn't how it was supposed to end. This isn't what was supposed to happen. He was supposed to be, just like Jose was, the man who finally brought trophies and ended the 15-year trophy drought, and it hasn't. And you have to start questioning where we can go next. Not only the name of the manager, but is it going to be a project manager? Is it going to be another win now manager? I mean, we know the number one choice straight away was Thomas Tuchel. He maybe is a bit of a middle ground in both, but he's off the market now, having joined Bayern Munich. So it's a whole lot of confusion. We have a little bit more clarity than we had an hour ago, than we had 2 hours ago, but there's still so many unanswered questions. And on the point of Cristian Stellini, I was very, very surprised by that. I said a couple of weeks ago that it was the game after the game, I think, against Wolves that I kind of started to realise that the tenure had to come to an end. And it just was a coincidence, really, that the breaking point for me came after a prolonged stint for Cristian Stellini in the dugout when Conte was in Italy recovering from his surgery. But I said that I didn't hold anything against Stellini. I think he did very well when he was interim manager, picked up some huge victories. That one against Marseille back before Christmas when Conte was serving a touchline ban, the win against Manchester City, the win against Chelsea as well. I think we beat West Ham under him as well. So in what would have been a very confined and restricted sort of post for him, trying to be the main man while Conte was pulling the strings really from back in Italy, he did quite well. So while I'm disappointed we don't have someone in straight away, and while I'm disappointed that we do have to have an interim, I am to some extent excited to see what maybe he can do with a bit more freedom, because it's his first proper managerial post at a big club. So it's going to be a huge challenge for him. But also I think we might start to see a bit of experimenting and a bit of something different, which is a big criticism we've had of Antonio Conte and his kind of rigidity in that formation and in the players that he's picked. But it is confusing to me that Conte did give his blessing, because it seemed as though, judging even solely off that press conference last week, that things had gone very, very sour. I know we heard later that night that Conte had spoken to Daniel Levy and kind of specified that what he said was targeted at the players rather than the board. But I mean, you just have to read the transcript of that press conference to see right through that he was, he did say a lot of things calling out the board. So I'm surprised that there does seem to be a bit of positivity, I suppose, left in that relationship. But it's yesterday's problem now, and I think we need to start looking towards what could be next for Tottenham Hotspur.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, before we look ahead to what's next, it wouldn't be right if we didn't maybe just discuss, obviously, Antonio and what he did bring to the club in that first season. And ultimately, I mean, Lee, what's quite an interesting stat is that if you average, well, for context, 1.88 per game in the Premier League under him, it's played 56, won 32, drawn 9, lost 15. He's got the second highest figure of any Spurs manager. So you look at 1.89, Maurizio Pochettino, 1.88, there is Antonio Conte, 1.83, that is Villas-Boas, 1.74, Harry Redknapp, and then 1.64, Jose Mourinho. So as we said, Conte averaging the second highest figure of points accumulated for any Spurs manager. Ultimately, Lee, looking in reflection now, which seems really weird to about Antonio in the past, despite we knew this was coming, where, Lee, in your mind, did it all go wrong? Where did it all go wrong for you?
Does my speakers work okay? I don't know if you can hear me.
You sound absolutely perfect for now. Yeah, you sound perfect.
I sorted out tech issues. Look, I mean, them stats. I mean, you know, I love the stats. Got the blue book here, mate. Do you know what I mean? But at the end of the day,
You know, he's been here 5 minutes. Maurizio Pochettino is what 0.01. You just said behind him. He was here for 5.5 years, and Harry's done what 10 behind him, and he was here for 4 years. So, you know, tenure in a football club against the context of them points per game ratios is really, really important. Look, I am disappointed. I'm disappointed it didn't work out. I'm disappointed we got Stellini. I can't agree with Matty on that one. I'm not looking forward to it at all. You know, I think from top to bottom on the footballing side, since we've made this change, it's been a nightmare. We haven't had a permanent manager in this football club for more than 2 years since 2018. I mean, that's absolutely. Hello, like, is anybody listening and watching? That is utterly ridiculous. I just can't run a football club in this sort of way, and this rinse and repeat cycle that Ant was talking about, and we've all mentioned it. It's just mind blowing how we can keep doing this, and I just feel that. I'm actually upset because we're going to get an email next week saying, and I said this on the last show, and I'm going to say it again, we're going to get an email next week saying renew your season tickets. So you're expecting me to renew my season ticket when we have no idea what direction this football club's going in? If Fabio Paratici is going to be, look, I'm making guesswork here. Do you know what I mean? But maybe they can't make a permanent appointment because of his situation, which I think is untenable to a certain degree. He's meant to be choosing the new manager. Maybe he's not going to be around, or he can't be around, and it's not the club's fault. It's just a nightmare. It's just not one person's fault. It's just a nightmare. Why is Daniel Levy, Rick, saying a statement tonight? Yes, he's the leader, which is great, but surely that should be Fabio Paratici, no? It's just I just find it really. I'm just upset. I'm actually upset. I'm using that word because it's a different word to angry and this, that, and the other. I mean, we knew it was coming, but I'm just disappointed with we haven't been able to go. Okay, thanks, Antonio. Wicked. We've got Potjaw. Amazing. We've got Nagelsmann. It's like now we've got great. We've got we've got Mason, and we've got a bit of Stellini action. It's just underwhelming. Every single decision is underwhelming. But to answer your original question, Antonio's done all right. He got us in top four. And I find it really interesting as well, the statement you read out from him, that he's given Stellini his blessing, so he can continue to help the club hit its target, which is top four. Is that a little bit of a dig? Rick?
Well, I mean, again, I must say that obviously that report coming from Matt Law of the Telegraph, someone that's obviously highly reputable, and it seems very, very close to everything in the Spurs world. Jamie, you've just come in. I'd just get your reaction to the decision by Tottenham to let Conte go. I mean, ultimately, what's quite remarkable is Conte actually is leaving Tottenham in the top four, and that's where he finished last season. I think, again, it depends how you judge his reign. I think many will judge it on the brand of football and maybe some of the real poor cup exits, which a lot of you have been a part of. Dale have been a massive part of some of those cup exits, which we've seen throughout this season. Give me your thoughts, Jamie, on the overall decision from Tottenham to obviously allow Conte to go, and they've made that choice. And also the fact that we're not bringing in essentially his replacement right now, and it's Stellini and Mason until the end of the season.
Yeah, look, obviously, firstly, shout out to COYS for guys been listening to us since the Love Sport days. Obviously, I know he was always listening and tuning in. So, yeah, big shout to him. But, for me, I think a big thing with the cup exits and kind of the way that he talks about how Spurs don't win trophies. And I think it's very hypocritical because for me, a big frustration from those cup exits is where we did rest some of the key players. For me, when we played against was it Sheffield United, and we rested Romero and Harry Kane. And it's like, want to give these our best shot, and to be resting our best players was really difficult and was really disappointing. So I think, he's someone who continuously tries to deflect the blame. I think sometimes that can be right as well. I think that there has been obviously blame that can go elsewhere. But I think it's really disappointing to kind of see the way it's ended. I was so over the moon when we got Antonio Conte. I really thought that this was kind of the start of something very special at Spurs. Then, of course, last season, we had some great moments. We got, obviously, the win against Manchester City, that amazing win against Arsenal. And it felt as though we were really going to kick on in the summer. But, it was just a really kind of difficult it's been just such a draining season. That's kind of how I can describe it. And, you know, I've always kind of, the early part of the season, really kind of defended the way that we're playing. Obviously, we're getting results. But I just think I've just been drained. I've just been drained throughout the whole season. And it's just come to, you know, just a gradual conclusion that it's time for him to go. It's just been really difficult to watch his style of football. So, yeah, I think there's just several factors that have kind of led to this. But just the football. And, it feels like we've been wasting our time again. You know, we've, it comes to the fact that we've got this win now manager, but we clearly knew what he was going to kind of demand when he comes in. And we obviously were never willing to give him that. And we know what we need. We need a guy who's going to come in, commit to wanting to be at the club, who wants to play football the way us fans want to play football. I just feel like it has been a bit of a waste of time, unfortunately. But it's no real surprise that he's gone. Obviously, maybe the timing's not the best, and obviously doing these shows late, making us do shows late. But I'm quite enjoying.
Jamie, do you think, just quickly, Rick, Jamie, do you think that the style of football is going to change dramatically under Stellini's stewardship?
No, I don't. I just find it like a bit of a bizarre appointment, and I think it's really unfair on our supporters. You know, Lee, you mentioned obviously about season tickets. Well, look, we kind of we are paying the highest prices in the league, and you know, I just think it's a bit unacceptable for us to have to kind of, for the last couple of games, we're just going to cruise through the rest of the season. I find that just really, really disappointing. Look, I mean, maybe they have got a plan up the sleeve. Do they ever have a plan? I don't think they do. So I'm definitely not holding my breath on that one, but. Yeah, it's going to be a really difficult end to the season. You can just imagine, those games in the stadium. You know, you don't get results, and you've got Stellini and Ryan Mason on the touchline. I just think the atmosphere is going to be really kind of low, and I'm not looking forward to kind of those home matches at all. I just think the atmosphere is going to be quite toxic, and it's just such a shame, such a shame.
We have got everybody's initial thoughts. What we are going to do, we are going to go for our first break of this show. Look, I mean, again, it's an evening where we are reacting as we go. So any further news on Tottenham, we'll bring it to you. And we've got over 1,500 of you watching us live. So once again, thank you ever so much for all of your incredible support for Last Word on Spurs, our wonderful viewers and listeners, our loyal viewers and listeners. And can I just say a massive shout out to our wonderful panelists tonight that answered a very, very, very late call from me, frantically panicking, saying, "Are you awake? Are you alive?" We're joined by the wonderful Antony Costa, Blues' very own, back on Last Word on Spurs, the superb Matty Hayes, crazy training instructor, conductor, runner, Mr. Lee McQueen, the superb British actor, Darren Hartman, and the wonderful Jamie Brown over at the Daily Hotspur. Oh, I quite tell you. I mean, look, as we record right now, we're getting even news coming through. Go on, Mac. Go on, Macca.
I was going to say, can we ask you as the host, right? Because you always ask the questions and we go around. What's your thoughts? Just give us your thoughts, mate.
You mean I've got an opinion on this shit show?
Rick's not allowed.
How long you got?
Come, buddy. Just give us your summary, really. It'd be great. I know the viewers and listeners want to hear it, mate.
Listen, I've got to say that for me, I've said it before. Antonio Conte, right manager, wrong club, wrong board. It's such a shame because I think all of us wanted this to work. And we were all very much actually behind the appointment. And I think when he was given the job, I think there really was a feeling that Spurs were going to ultimately change and actually, for once, back a manager in their prime, who I think come off the back of winning 3 titles in the last 4 seasons, that we were going to change our ways, actually give a manager what he wants, and ultimately see a real changing at the football club. And I think in that first 11, 12 months, Antonio was massively invested. I think the board were to some degree, despite the fact that arguably that summer when they came in, when he did first come into the club, obviously he came at a point where we were still, 4 or 5 months left of a season. And we can't forget after Burnley, I think many have thought would he have even stayed and remained at the club given that massive outburst. But I think at the time when he'd done that, I think he knew that the players felt he was almost some of their last option. He knew that ultimately he could do that with the players because they'd seen off so many managers that they're thinking, hold on, we're going to lose yet another one. Because we are going to come on to the players shortly. But, I mean, ultimately, I'm devastated it hasn't worked. I think the board have to take a massive amount of responsibility and accountability while this hasn't worked. I think we said it in the summer. Ant's been on, Matt's been on, Jamie's been on, Dow's been on, you've been on, Lee. That some of the signings that we've made, ultimately, we've now found out they're not Conte signings to some degree. Jed Spence was very much a club signing. We found out from Arnold Danjuma, obviously from a Conte presser recently, that ultimately he was a club signing. And I think the concern for me is that how many times have we seen players that have been thrust upon managers that ultimately they're not their first choice? And it's happened under Antonio, it's happened under Jose, it's happened under Pochettino. You go far back to Harry Redknapp even, it's happened. And that's my biggest concern, that ultimately we're going to change your manager again, but it's the same situation the last 20 years. Nothing's going to really change. And I hate to say that, but nothing is going to really change. And
and the thing is, Rick, you know, whoever we get in, we're going to do another summer show, welcome whoever.
Yep.
And then in another 18 months, oh, well, you know, he did play him and he dropped him and we're out of that cup, we're out of this cup.
And the players are frustrated. The players are angry by the tactics. But hold on a second, when he first came in the door, they're absolutely loving him. I know Jamie's chomping at the book there, chomping at the bit there. Jay, do you want to come back in on that?
I just feel as though like we've completely. This is what I mean. Like we feel like we've wasted so much time since Mauricio Pochettino. Because look, I think the way Spurs operate can work. Obviously, we saw under Mauricio Pochettino, yes, we were left short at times, but I feel as though you need to get in a manager who's going to be willing to develop players. We know what the club's all about. Well, obviously, yes, we have to accept that we are a club that develops develops players and looks to make players into big stars. So we've got to get in a manager who's willing to kind of develop players. And Conte, as much as he's I think maybe been let down by some of the players that he's been given, I think he has to take the blame as well for not developing players as well. That's been a real frustration for me. He's not been willing to work with any of these players to make them better players. Jed Spence, you know, he was an exciting, you know, I think we all know when he came in, he was an exciting player. And I would love to have seen a manager there who would have been willing to work with him, make him a better player. And that for me has definitely been a big frustration. I'm willing to work with players.
Lads, what if we don't get top four in 10 games' time? What happens then?
Yeah. But they must feel
like. Hold on. Does that top target the board and the club are going for? Mm. He wants Champions League football. So if we don't get Champions League football, where do we go? Where do we go?
That's when that is one, unfortunately, of the many unanswered questions, Ant. I mean, this is the problem, isn't it? I mean, we don't, you know, ultimately they've taken a decision on what they feel, Matt, coming over to you. They've taken a decision, ultimately, what they feel is the best opportunity to get the most out of the players to get to the top four. Otherwise, had they not have done this, they would have obviously felt Antonio still retained some of the trust of the players. So, Matt, I'll go to you first and I'll come to Dale, because you've got to feel they obviously must feel Conte's position there is completely untenable. Otherwise, why make that change they've made this evening?
I don't think there is any other reason. I mean, we know, and we've known for far too long, the only thing that matters to the people at the top of this club at the moment is the Champions League revenue. So, you know, I've seen some suggestions that maybe they've caved and got rid of Antonio Conte based on the backlash from the fans in the last week and the fan opinion. I know they put that out in their statement in this whole wonderful fan engagement thing earlier in the week. But every decision at Tottenham Hotspur is based on getting that extra money from being in the Champions League. So, look, I think if the players were as against Antonio Conte as was suggested in the media this week, and I know it might only take one player in that dressing room to go to the media and say we all don't like him, we all think the training is this, we all think the tactics are that. It might only have been one player, but just there's been so many things that are happening that, like, you know, that's the substitution against AC Milan, when you can see even Ryan Mason was on the sideline, didn't really know what was going on. There clearly is a lot of disagreement within that dressing room. So if the board have seen that, I think they had to act. And on the point of a manager not coming into the summer, I am quite confused about if you're Pochettino or if you're Nagelsmann or if you're whatever other manager is out there that we could be looking at. I personally don't understand why waiting till the summer is a better option for you, because you come in now, you get to work with the squad for 9 or 10 games. You get to see who fits your system, because you look at players that have been brought into this team, Richarlison being one of them, who was signed for 60 million. You have some of those midfielders, Rodrigo Bentancur, especially, even Kulusevski, only haven't played in the Premier League under this Antonio Conte system. All these players that he's brought in, we don't know how they're going to be. We might try play a more expansive formation with the midfielders really, really focusing on creativity. That might not work for Rodrigo Bentancur. Now, I think it absolutely will, but just as an example, that might not work for him. Romero might not work as well in a back four. You know, I just don't understand why for them it's better to come in and... Is which?
It's risk, isn't it, mate? At the end of the day, 100%. You think about it, right? You're making the decisions at board level. You're weighing it up, and you're going. And I think Cracker said this last time. You're going. Can we get top 4? If we play like this, we'll stay like what we are. All the players already coached. We'll keep Stellini in there and Ryan Mason. They've done all right, didn't they? They've done all right in the interim anyway. We beat West Ham, we beat Chelsea, we beat City. Don't worry about the Sheffield United thing or whatever. But let's keep them in here, because it's actually the long-term view would be bring a manager in now, get them playing like you just said, the 9 or 10 games, move it out, almost kind of say, do you know what, this season's done. We get wherever we get to, but we're not doing that. We're not going to throw away a top 4 place. Whereas, a couple of seasons ago, they put a rookie in charge of a cup final 6 days before it happened. So again, it's just that whole cycle again. I think everyone's nodding. Dal, maybe coming over to you, bring you in on that one as well, if I can be so bold. Is that do you agree with that? Would you rather see, like Matty's saying, would you rather see a new manager coming in now and rebuilding us today and have that pre-season so they can hit the ground running next season?
Absolutely, that makes perfect sense. And that's because it's come from a passionate fan perspective of wanting the best for our team. Let's be really real about the situation. Conte was only fired because of his last outburst. He said things that pushed too many buttons. Conte he wanted out. He had enough and he pushed a button. The board, if he had come out in that press conference and gone, we go again, we'll work hard, I'll get the guys going, we'll be ready after the international break, he would still have a job, because they had no issue with the performance that he was doing, because he's hitting their target. And that's the scary thing about the structure we have at our club. Right now, they're not caring about what the fans want in terms of football or what the project is, because all it is a money machine right now. It's where is the finances? Hence why Stellini and Mason are there, because financially it works for them for 10 games. Bringing in the new manager now would cost them too much, or whatever that financial repercussions are. They're not thinking about the football. That's why we have such a problem at our club, because the structure makes no sense. From the outside looking in, no one can get it. So what Matty said is exactly footballing sense. If you're a manager who sees the project and you want it, you jump in now. You've got 10 games to assess your squad. If you get top 4, you're an absolute winner. If you don't, you go, I'm trying out this squad. New season, we're going to be kicking. But that's what we want, and that's what we're not getting from our board right now. And that's what I mean. We're probably going to lose out on both the managers we've mentioned, because they're going to look at other projects. Right now, as a manager, why would you take Spurs? We are all businessmen here. We're all smart individuals. Why are you going to put your name on the line for a club that's giving you no true ambition and showing you that you're not in full control? It's mental. So I'm worried for us.
My fear there with the two managers is I don't know if you saw recently, but Ederson was in the Brazil camp. He said he spoke to the Real Madrid players. Ancelotti is most likely going to Brazil at the end of the season. Real Madrid's two choices are Pochettino and Nagelsmann. We're going to get the one that Real Madrid don't. We're going to get the leftovers. We're going to get the backup option. And even on the point, like just looking at the mentality of a manager, if you're Pochettino, I think you're finally going to get that shot at Real Madrid, and they opt to go for Nagelsmann. As much as Pochettino will be happy coming back to Tottenham, it's not where he wants to be in that moment. And from minute one, he's in a state where maybe I'd rather not be here. And that whole mentality, just think Conte feels like he's doing us a favour. For Jose, it felt like that at times as well. It's just getting off to a really, really bad start if it does come down to that. And I don't want to be back here in 18 months having the same conversation.
I mean, I think this is the thing that many people want now. They just want the club to decide what they want to be. Do they want to be a project, or do they, if they are going to go down the win now route, which many are getting worried again about going down that win now route, you have to give the manager exactly what they want. But we've seen with the previous 2 appointments, when they've gone down those win now routes, they haven't given the manager what they want. Jacob, over to you.
Look at the targets though. That's something that does concern me, because there is such a range of different targets. Like for me, I do believe that if Bayern hadn't have acted, they hadn't have sacked Julian Nagelsmann, I really think that Thomas Tuchel could be our manager right now, because I think that that's quite a possibility that they tried to explore. And it's very much a different manager from someone like Nagelsmann. Obviously, very different brand of football. Again, it's another big name, a win now manager who kind of tries to win at all costs. Nagelsmann, he probably comes in as a project manager. I think there's other names on that list. So just the range of targets as well is a real concern for me. So many kind of polar opposites. And again, it just comes down to, do the club know what they want to be? It just doesn't. There's that real clear.
And what if Chelsea sack Potter and they go for Nagelsmann? Where's he going to go?
So I think
let's just have it right. He ain't choosing Tottenham. Not a chance.
I think Matt was right about Right, it's going to be Real Madrid that will be the big one. I think that they're obviously going to get rid of Ancelotti in the summer, and maybe that's where I think he's going to want to wait as well, isn't he, Nagelsmann? Because why would you commit to Spurs now when you might have Real Madrid in the summer?
So where do we go? So who comes?
Can I just say, just before we do discuss that, there is some also news about Tottenham that we have to bring just to some light. Again, from Matt Law from the Telegraph, he says there's a preliminary hearing in the Court of Turin scheduled for Monday. So on your morning commute will be obviously today regarding whether should be a criminal trial into allegations of malpractice at Juventus. Fabio Paratici is named as one of those defendants. So, yeah, the soap opera of Tottenham rolls on even more. So in terms of the next 8 weeks, Spurs are going to need to resolve their sporting director and appoint a new manager to work hand in hand. I mean, you have to say, ultimately, these next 2 appointments that Tottenham may be forced into making might be the biggest in ultimately the club's recent history. And yeah, given the fact of, I think we've seen already a wide range of names being mentioned on a short list, I think we all need some clarity and clarification and, well, understanding as to where the club are going. As per what we understand from the sacking of Conte, again from Matt Law, he says that while Spurs have put Stellini and Mason in charge for the remainder of the season, Tottenham are interested in ultimately replacing Conte with Julian Nagelsmann. And that, again, has been, I think, again, repeated by a friend of the show, Paul O'Keefe, who says the same, that ultimately at the moment, Julian Nagelsmann is the number one target. So I think before we do...
Rick, sorry, just on that, and look, I'm totally Poch biased, right? So you'll know that from my conversations that I've had recently. But this is what I'm talking about, the magpie effect. Now, some people might say, well, shut up, Lee. It's an opportunity. Like, the opportunity has arisen to have a conversation with Nagelsmann. But Nagelsmann was on nobody's mind at all. 0 people were talking about Nagelsmann, 1 iota, before he was sacked at Bayern. Because we all knew there was no chance that he was leaving Bayern to come to Tottenham Hotspur. And this is what I think the point that Jamie was making is, well, all of us are making is, it just feels like, oh, hang on a minute. Oh, what about that person? Oh, yeah, what about that person? And look, by the way, this isn't the board. This isn't the board doing that. That's us. That's the fans. That's the social medias. That's all the hype that's going on in the media and all that sort of stuff. But what's clear to me is the best opportunity that we have to rebuild, to put furniture in the house, to go again, it is Maurizio Pochettino. And he's available, and he loves the club, and he does youth, and he's on the first front foot football, 60% possession, scoring goals, etc., etc. Bleeding for. I don't agree with Jamie and Matt about he would be the afters after Real Madrid. I still think Poch, if you offered Pochettino a job today, I think he would take that regardless of what's happening in the summer. But I do agree with Nagelsmann would definitely be taking a Real Madrid.
And is that enough to keep Kane?
I think it could be.
That's the $1 million question as well, because I'm sure we're going to come to that.
Massive point.
You know, if Nagelsmann comes in, he don't know the Premier League. Poch comes in, he's already been Poch's, one of Poch's players. So who else is there to get Kane and co excited?
I think the manager's going to have maybe a year to kind of, to convince Kane, because I think Harry Kane, he's not going to go anywhere in the summer, because I think they're going to keep him this. Because I don't think they're going to force him out, are they? Because I think Spurs, they're not going to want to sell him. So I think it will be a case of where if he does leave, it will be at the end of his contract. So they will ultimately probably have a year to kind of convince Kane that they are the right man.
You know what I'm intrigued to obviously ask in these closing segments of this show is, number one, Conte being sacked. What do you guys think is the future for him? In terms of, do you think he'll go to achieve future success?
He will go win something before we do.
He might go Real Madrid. He might go Real Madrid, boys.
Yeah, that's a good shout.
Not being funny. He's a world-class manager, win now manager. He goes Real Madrid. They pick up a couple of Champions Leagues, a few La Ligas.
And then we can get Poch and Nagelsmann as joint managers. Unbelievable. Let's just do that.
I'm also keen to know in his next couple of minutes, in his closing segment.
I will put my house on it. He will win something within the next 2 years at another club.
Jose is living proof of that. They do. Also, keen to know from you boys in terms of what we are going to find out from the guys is that ultimately with Mason and Stellini combined, is that enough to achieve a top 4 finish? And then finally, who do the guys want next come the summer? But you do, there's a lot that's going to be coming in these next couple of days. I mean, again, I don't think this is the end of it. I think ultimately it's just the start of this. Richard on the screen here says, and you have to forgive me, Richard, there's a little bit of a delay from my side when it comes to messages, so we will bring this up. He says, how does someone responsible for hiring managers continue in a job? Managerial mistakes are accountable, surely, unless you're a top dog, perhaps. Richard, I think we've made our point very, very clear on Last Word on Spurs. I mean, I think we've all been here on times where we've all called for some form of a change at the very, very top. And again, I think, I would echo that message that something has to really drastically change, because I think many thought for them, Conte was the last chance for Daniel Levy. But as we've seen with Tottenham under this ENIC, obviously, organisation, that he seems to be the only chairman that gets 9-10 lives at having a go again, and it is baffling, because I think Daniel Levy, I think Crack says this so often, had Daniel Levy employed Daniel Levy, he would have sacked Daniel Levy by now. So it is ultimately
100
baffling.
times over.
It's baffling how we still find ourselves under this regime and we just carry on and we have hope that there might be something different that comes to the end of it. But Ant's already answered my question. He thinks Antonio will go on to achieve future success. Matt, coming over to you, we can't get away from the fact, Matt, that I think when you look back at what's happened over the course of the 2 seasons, again, I think we mustn't underestimate how big a loss it was. Jean-Pierre Ventroni, losing him at the time he did. I think Conte, up until that point, was massively, heavily invested in the project. He then subsequently went on and lost a couple of very, very close, dear friends to him. And ultimately, upon when he had the surgery, he never looked like the same man when he came back. He almost felt like he was half invested. Many would say, look, the man's gone through a lot on a personal level. You can understand that. Do you think, Matt, was that the ultimate turning point, the loss of Ventroni, and those coupled with the personal events? It was never going to be a way to get this back to what it once was in that first season?
Yeah, I think, look, he's human. And it's easy to forget that at times when we're idolizing these people, and we're, watching their press conferences, watching their every move, and hearing the stories about, what condiments he wants his players to eat when they have their chips. It's hard to remember that they are just human. And I think as much as in my mind the club and the squad needed this change, I think Antonio Conte needed it as well. And there was talk of him taking that break from football after he left Inter Milan, and that didn't last very long when he came to Spurs. I think he probably needs a break now, and I hope he takes it. But like Anthony said, and like you asked, he's going to go on to his next club and he's going to win trophies. I don't know if you saw that stat during the week, but of all the managers that ENIC have appointed at Tottenham in their 20 plus years, they've won with Tottenham 1 trophy, and away from Tottenham 61 trophies. So look, it's just going to be par for the course. And I used to do a feature on my Twitter where I looked at players who left Tottenham and went on to win trophies. And you had Vincent Janssen going off to Mexico. He was winning the league there. You had players going down to the championship, winning it with Fulham. It just seems to be a thing. When you come to Spurs, you don't win anything. When you leave, you win everything. And as much as we can laugh about that here, it is a very, very sad truth. And Conte is just going to be the next name on a very, very long list of people that do leave Tottenham and go on to get greater success. We just need to figure out a way for that to happen here. But if that's going to happen in the current under the current tenure, I'm not too sure.
Can you pinpoint for you, Dow, in your mind, where did it all go wrong? Was it the fact of Conte losing those close friends? Was it retrievable beyond that? And then obviously having the gallbladder, and then the way in which you'd arguably say his name, to be honest with you, Dow, as we saw in the last month, wasn't really sung by the fans. Mm-hmm. And ultimately the connection with the fans died at the end. I mean, where did it all go wrong for you, Dow?
It's a combination of a lot of things. As you say, he is human. He had a lot of personal stuff that he's gone through. And I don't think he's been well supported by the board in that personal stuff and also in the professional stuff. And that's where frustration grows. And we've watched, if I'm honest, we've watched the man get more and more frustrated and annoyed as he's gone on. And he started off with so much passion, so much energy, so much vigor, so much excitement about the project. You could see Conte wanted to win, because you got to remember, we went for him and he turned us down first. Then things changed in his world, changed in our world. He saw an idea, he saw a gap for himself, and he came for it. And you go, okay, let's do it. As you quite rightly said, Rich, he came, he wanted to win, but he couldn't. And his hands were tied. He had problems with what was going on. And I think there's so many bits of our machine that keeps repeating itself. The way in which players are bought, the way in which they're looked after, the way in which, and you said it a minute ago, what about Kane? And I think that's also an issue that is in our structure. It's what about Kane now? Let's look after Kane. What's Kane feeling? What's Kane worried about? there's so many things that the structure is just all wrong. The jigsaw puzzle has been put together horribly, and it needs a whole refix. And bringing in Conte, we all wanted to believe, Spurs fans, we willed it to work, and it didn't. And I think that Conte, of course, will go on. He will win again because he's a winner, and he will get the support he needs, and he will go on to win. You know what? I wish him well because he's not a bad person. My concern is, what do we do? Because we're the fans who ain't getting the win right now. So that's the concern for me. So yeah, Conte's going to go and he's going to win well. I think there's lots of bits of this puzzle, Rick, that have failed us again. And I think as Spurs, as everyone said, if Levy hired Levy, he would have fired himself. So let's look at this system and go, Levy, the common denominator, you're still there, big man. These problems keep happening and it's still under you. You're still calling the shots on this. You need to check yourself.
I don't know, Lee, get your thoughts on that. Do you share a lot of Dale's, obviously, frustrations there in relation to the board and also with regards to Conte in your mind? Is there a massive turning point, Lee, where for you it just went wrong? Was it those cup exits? Was it before those cup exits? How soon did you know this just simply wasn't going to work?
It was Sheffield United away for me, 100%. I was stood in the stand. It was absolutely freezing. Most of us made the trip up there. The round trip up there. It was miles for lots and lots and lots of people, and it was just awful. It was god awful as well. At the time, picking Richarlison to play up top, I was all right with it. Kane being on the bench, whatever. I was okay with that. I know since then a lot of people said, "Oh, you play Kane." They're similar situation in the Champions League final. Like, no, don't play Kane, play more because you just got hat-trick and then, Kane going back after injury. So little moments like that. But, Kane was on the pitch for 65th minute or something. And he was god-awful that night as well. These players, this club, we don't want to win. Honestly, people tell me we do. No, we don't. We don't want to win. It's in our DNA that we want to lose. It is, it's poor old Tottenham, they got to the Champions League final, but poor old Tottenham, they got to semi-final. Most of the clubs out there, they don't even look at us like that. They're just laughing at us. We're just basically the laughing stock. Phone goes again. More banter. Where's the empty trophy cabinet? War a trophy. Like, I'm tired. I said it on Sky in the week, didn't I, Rick? I'm tired. I'm tired now. I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired. I'm just broken, mate. It just does my head in. And Sheffield United was it for me. It was Sheffield United. And after that, it was like, maybe I am waking up and smelling the coffee. But, like you said, Dal, the common denominator, I've said many, many times, I'm not interested really in Levy out and Ink out. I'm not interested in them going because I think what they've done off the pitch is absolutely magnificent. I just want this level of detail that they've done off the pitch on the pitch. Because if they did that, we'd be probably champions of Europe. We'd be the best club in Europe without a doubt. And we just keep getting it wrong, Wick, over and over and over again. The law of averages at some point tells you that we might get it right. But we stumbled across Martin Jol after making an appointment with Jack Santini, to be fair. Some might say we stumbled across Poch. Even when you read that graphic out earlier about, the goals per game ratios, look at the games. Tim Sherwood, 22 games. He was 1.19. And Maurizio over 200 games, and he's still the second highest. Harry Redknapp over 144 games and still like the fourth highest. This is under directors of football. Them two managers that I've just checked did not have director of football structures. You go 518 days without making a signing under the Pochettino reign, and then he has one or two, he goes 11 months without an away win, which was pretty horrendous. And a lot of people were saying, actually, maybe it was time for him to go. He didn't make a signing for 518 days. Are you serious? You give Pep and Klopp and all these other managers no signers 518 days and see what their results are a year after that. He deserves another opportunity. Just in my opinion, he deserves another opportunity to finish the job because he's the only one that got this football club.
Can I just say, we are going to come on to that. We will close it on that. Before I do, Anne, I just want to ask you, look, we speak every day, as I say. How much responsibility, Anne, should the players take for this? Some of these players have now seen off, for some of them, a fourth manager. Yeah. A fourth manager. We've seen dressing room leaks this week over all the mainstream media, the same stories. Training is draining. It's repetitive. It's boring. But we've heard this under Conte. We've heard this under Mourinho. We've heard this under Nuno. I mean, we've heard this so many times, this rhetoric. How many times, Ant, can it always be the managers? How many times?
It will always be there, Rickster, until people from the top, middle and bottom go or make changes and proper changes. It will always be that. We're going to get a new manager now in summer, hopefully. It's going to be great working in the gym, pumping iron, running, pre-season, you know, win a few pre-season games. We're doing your show. Oh, isn't it brilliant? He's playing 3 at the back, 4 at the back, 5 at the back. Isn't it brilliant? Fantastic. And then 6, 7 months later, we'll get knocked out of the League Cup. 2 months later after that, we'll get knocked out of the FA Cup, 100%, because that's Spurs. That's their season. And then it'll be players don't like. It's going to happen again. That's why I want to be excited for a new manager, a new lease of life. But I ain't. I don't care. I don't care because there's no vision. There's a scattergun. Oh, who's available? Oh, we'll go for Nagelsmann because fans might like him and Kane might stay. We'll go back to Potts because he knows the club. He gets it. And then he has he has bad games and everyone's on his back and everyone's on Nagelsmann's back. We're never going to be happy, mate. And the players are never going to be happy until the players go. I'm just sick of it. I'm sick of it, mate.
Yeah. You know what is frightening, Dale, to come over to you? Some of these players, there are about 8 or 9 there that have overseen 4 now managerial casualties.
Yeah.
You know, at what point, Dale, do we have to start, pointing the finger at even the ball to some degree and the managers and start looking at, surely the players have got to be accountable. Surely they have to, Dale, don't they? Right now
with that moment. Because Conte said it. He said it. He said the board, he said the players, he called it. And now that time, if you're Stellini, if you're Ryan Mason, when you get everyone back, you go, we're all part of this mess. Everyone here is part of this. Everyone here is responsible. Everyone's got a percentage in this. You know how you show that you care? You know how you show you want it? You give the fans football and you give them top 4. That's what you go and do. You've got 10 games to show the fans who you are. And also, you're all on the shop window right now. Every single one of you. Because every single one of you could go because whoever the new manager is watching. Whoever is out there who wants a job, they've got their eye on Spurs right now. And if you ain't showing it now, out you go. That's what it should. There shouldn't be hugs and kisses and we'll look after you. And Conte's gone. Now training will be fun again and we'll have a good time. I'm not here for a good time. I'm not here for that. I'm here to see you guys give us something back. This is the exchange. So every player in that dressing room should be owning the fact that they have now no longer got a manager. It's part of your job to do your job well on the football pitch. Your manager has been employed to get the result from you. He's been fired because something's not working. You're part of that machine. You've got to take some percentages. Everyone's got to do it. They've got to take it today.
And also, whoever comes in, we have to be patient. Darren's 100% right. We have to be patient.
I think Ant, you're spot on there. I mean,
I'm the most impatient Spurs fan ever. But
no way.
Yeah, exactly.
No way. What? And at half time? Are you serious?
Yeah, do you remember?
Do I remember? I'm still getting therapy for it.
So for me, I have to learn a different way of supporting Tottenham because if it's up to me, they'll be getting sacked every 2 minutes, mate.
I mean, Joe, I'm going to get Jamie and Matt's thoughts on this as well because, again, on a show like this, a lot. I'll come over to you, Jay, first on this. Yeah. A lot of times when you talk about a manager sacking, a lot is focused, a lot on the manager. And I feel like on this show, probably you were here, obviously, when we did Maurizio's exit. I think he was here, Jay, when we did Nuno's too to some degree. This one does feel slightly different in the fact that it feels like maybe Tottenham as well has failed Conte as much as Conte has failed Tottenham, if you see both ends of those spectrum there. Yeah. But for you, player-wise, where do you stand and how much responsibility they should take on this?
They have to take some responsibility because I think they have to have the backbone. I don't think the manager should necessarily have to always get the players up for each game. They are professionals, very well-paid professionals who should be able to motivate themselves. But I look at those last 3 managers and I think they've all had the same problems where they've, I don't think training's been particularly inspiring. I don't think, the way they put their message across has been particularly inspiring. You look at the way that Antonio Conte constantly kind of degrades us in the media. I mean, what do the players think of that? And I think that ultimately the culture kind of needs to, or in the dressing room, certainly, I think, certainly the board kind of set the culture for the whole club, and that's why we absolutely stink. But I think in terms of the manager, he needs to create kind of an environment the players want to be in, and Conte just has not done that, and obviously a bit of sympathy for him in terms of we've all said it's been a very difficult year for him personally, but I think that's just had a big impact. Their mood, they need to come in and create a culture where the players want to be there. The players are motivated to play for them. We never really had this issue under Pochettino. Obviously, towards the end, I think it naturally came to an end where his message has kind of come to an end where it needed that refresh. He never got that. And I think under the last three managers, they've just been in a culture where you've had managers constantly moaning, that obviously tactics have been kind of really poor to play under. They're just totally uninspiring. So Spurs need to get in a manager now who's going to really kind of inspire the players, inspire the fans as well, and want to be at the club. And it feels like maybe the last three managers haven't wanted to do so. Nuno, of course, came in, was very fortunate to have got the job. I think everyone knew that he was, sixth or seventh choice. So why are the players going to run through brick walls for a guy who the club just about wanted? Antonio Conte, as I keep saying, he's been always degrading us in the media. I think that's helped at all. So I just hope they're getting someone who genuinely wants to be at the club and who's going to be motivated to kind of create a positive atmosphere in the dressing room. And look, I said these are grown men, these are professionals, as I said, so they absolutely need to take some responsibility. But as I said, just desperately getting someone now who's going to want to play attractive football, who's going to want to work with players as well. And that for me has been a big downfall for Antonio Conte. His unwillingness to work with players, to develop players. And I think there's been lots of players in that squad who he's not got the best out of. Basuma, someone who I really kind of disappointed how it's been. I think he's a fantastic player, but Conte just clearly hasn't wanted to work with him. Jed Spence was another player. We all very excited to see him come into the football club. Just didn't want to work with him. So again, getting someone who's going to want to develop players, who's going to want to get the best out players, motivate them. And look, obviously, I think obviously there's comments there maybe saying that Conte hasn't motivated them. And I think to a certain extent, a big name kind of coming in. But this season, the way he's talked about us in the media, I think no players who's going to want to play for a club where the manager's always saying that we're not good enough. So yeah, I just hope that next manager is going to be someone that looks to kind of want to be here and try and inspire the players.
Just to give Matt your opportunity on this as well, we've discussed a lot. We've discussed the board at length on this show, how they maybe have failed Conte. We've discussed Conte in terms of the issues that he's had in terms of, I say issues, he's lost three very close friends. He had an operation as well. There's moments, as Lee said, you can almost feel where it was going down the wrong path, the cup exits, the manner of them, the way in which we were maybe being spoken down to as supporters. But again, Matt, I just want to close it on this before we look ahead to what comes next. How much responsibility, Matt, I've asked the boys this so far, how much responsibility do the players need to take that once again they're seeing off, and you can't deny it, a serial winner, and his CV proves that, the same as Jose did. And I think, like the boy said, I agree with Ant, he will go on and win trophies regardless, whatever club comes next on his CV. Matt, thoughts on that for you?
The players have to take a lot more responsibility than I think they are. That they're a lot of them, the core of the squad, are the same players that were talking out against Pochettino at the end. That got Nuno sacked. Nuno got Nuno sacked, but got Jose sacked as well. You can't see the same thing go wrong time and time again and keep changing one person in one position and not realize that the people in the other positions, the constants, are the problem. The players and the people at board level. You can't just keep changing that middleman and expecting things to get any better. And look, what Conte said in that press conference last Saturday, I agreed with every single word that came out of his mouth. Everything he said. Everything he said is what we as fans have been saying for months and for years. Everything he said about what needs to change is what we have been saying. But the issue is, as a manager, as a professional, you cannot go out and speak about your colleagues like that publicly. No matter how true it is, the fact that he went out and he said all of that to the press and he didn't go into the dressing room, he didn't say a single word to the players. And look, he can say he said that to the players time and time again this season, but you just cannot treat your colleagues like that, because if you're these players who have, again, this has been said in a way behind their back, and you have to turn up to training on Tuesday with that man leading you for the rest of the season, are you going to care? how much effort are you really going to put into it? And that is a criticism of Conte and of the players as well, because the players should have enough pride in their own ability, enough pride in their work, and enough passion and love for the club to be able to go out and perform under any circumstances. But unfortunately, the world's not a perfect place, and Tottenham is far from a perfect place, and it just wasn't going to work out with Conte and those players. So it had to go, but those players have so much to answer for. They really, really do. There's some there that we know will give their all and will give absolutely everything. You know, Harry Kane is on that list. Rodrigo Bentancur has been absolutely exemplary this season. But the way we've been missing him since his injury has been awful. Players like Fraser Forster have stepped up when they were needed. But then you look at players who can be so reliable. Kulusevski's form has dropped recently. Christian Romero, as much as I absolutely adore him, he has become a liability in the last few months. Yeah, every single game he's flying in. He was going to get a red card eventually. He ended up getting 2. So that for me is the main reason why we need a project manager. Because if no one is going to have enough time in 18 months to give this squad the overhaul that it needs, because again, I said all the time, it's just an awful mix and match of players in there at the moment. You need a manager to get 3 or 4 years, like Pochettino did at the start, to get rid of those players that you know aren't fitting into your style, that aren't, not just in a football sense, but in a mentality sense as well. There are players there that just won't fit into what the next manager wants, and he needs to be given the time to get rid of them and then to bring those new players in. And look, I at first was a fan of Conte and not committing too far to the future, because it was kind of forcing the club into something. But when it wasn't working, you need to change. My fear with the next manager is that Daniel Levy will be the one that won't be willing to commit, because if we're here again in 12, 14, 18 months' time, it's going to cost Daniel Levy a lot more money than it is to sack Antonio Conte now. So I think all 6 of us here and everyone watching could easily plan out what we think needs to happen in this football club in the next 1, 2, 3, 4 years. But if that's going to happen, I sincerely doubt it. I'm just hoping beyond hope that they see a bit of light and realize, okay, we need to take a step back. Maybe we need to forget about Champions League for a year or 2. We need to strip everything down. We need to take out the skirting boards. We need to take up the carpet, and then we need to get someone to put that proper furniture in, because there's no point putting that furniture on moldy carpets. Let's just take the time that we need and sort this football club out from top to bottom.
Yeah, I'm conscious that we do need to close it on what's next. Before I do, I just want to ask, I'm going to ask you this question, Ant. Yeah. How damaging has it been, Ant, that we went into the resumption of the Premier League after the World Cup with Antonio not committing to a new contract? And do you think ultimately, Ant, the decision that was taken that they couldn't agree a new contract at that point, was it always going to lead down this path in your mind? Or was there any way in which this could have worked, given that we didn't agree a contract at that point?
I think once that happened and you sort of heard whispers, he doesn't really want to, he wants to go back to Italy. And then he sort of said a few things, I believe, in interviews, didn't he, that he misses Italy and he wishes he was still there and stuff. You just knew by then, by his body language. I think he was just riding the matches out. And obviously, you know, he's had some bad news over the last sort of couple of months and health problems. So put that aside, I think in himself, since January, end of December, he hasn't been himself, and I think it was inevitable if and when he was going to go.
Yeah, listen, I agree. For me, I said it was football suicide. I'm sorry to use that word, but I mean, in terms of footballing context, to have gone into a second half of the season and allow that situation to meander on and play out and not have a resolution at that point, for me, that was unacceptable. And then you saw some of the limp performances that followed that. The FA Cup exits, which of course some of the boys were here for, that are still receiving therapy for that, I must say. I think Dow's one of them. The Champions League, the way Spurs limped out to AC Milan, simply unacceptable on the night. There's been so many insipid displays. And I think ultimately the question next is, can Stellini and Mason together get Spurs to a Champions League spot? That's what we're going to next. There's over 1,500 of you live watching us. Thank you so much again for all your support. We're hitting midnight. I just want to say again, thank you so much to the viewers and listeners. A massive thank you again to our wonderful panel here. The crazy train instructor, runner, conductor, Lee McQueen, who said it all those years ago, and it's coming to fruition once again. We're joined by the brilliant British actor, Darren Hartman, blues singer, songwriter, the wonderful Antony Costa, the wonderful Matty Hayes, and the superb Jamie Brown over at the Daily Hotspur, who are guiding you through and overseeing yet another sacking of a Spurs coach. When have we ever had normality at Tottenham? And Connor's well says, sorted or sweet popcorn. You make your mind up, you tune in and you listen. Thank you so much for your support. Boys, look, it feels like it's a long time ago now. We got a statement from Daniel Levy, who said we have 10 Premier League games remaining and we have a fight on our hands for a Champions League place. We all need to pull together. Everyone has a step to ensure the highest possible finish for our club and amazing, loyal supporters. Now, again, I think given the nature of the way in which we've been described often by the club in these last 12, 18 months, Daniel has been very, very kind in those last few words there. But I do think we are amazing. I do think we are loyal. I do think we are the best fans in the world, in my opinion, for what we've had to go through and for the lack of silverware. So ultimately what Spurs find themselves in now is Stellini taking the team as acting head coach for the remainder of the season, along with Ryan Mason as assistant head coach. Lee, let's go straight to you. 10 games remaining in the Premier League. Spurs currently 4th as things stand at the moment. We've got Everton to come after that international break. It must be said that when you look at that Premier League table, that Newcastle have 2 games in hand on Spurs, where they're just 2 points behind us. Liverpool as well, 2 games in hand, but they're on 42 points respectively, alongside Brighton, who actually have an additional game in hand, and Brentford as well on 42 points. I mean, Lee, give me your thoughts on the appointments of Mason and Stellini till the end of the season, and are they good enough to secure Spurs a top 4 finished, given what we've got to come?
Disappointed with Stellini and Mason being in charge. I think that this is, you might say there's been a whirlwind, but a week or 8 days in football is a very long time. People tell me all the time that it's a very long time. A day in football is a long time. So 8 days is enough time. If the club wanted to appoint Maurizio Pochettino back to his football club, probably would have been done, wouldn't it? So, the reality of the situation is probably not going to be happening now. And now we're left, I suppose, with Mason and Stellini. I've got nothing against Stellini. I think with Ryan, he's one of our own. I think he's going to be a fantastic coach in the future. But we don't need interim managers. We don't need somebody to come in and do an Avram Grant. That Chelsea is just so. It's like we look at the blue side of London and think, well, okay, should we just copy them with 5 managers that we've had? From 4 managers, potentially we're going to go for a Tuchel as well, so that would have been 5 managers. We keep managers for a year or 14 months, which is what they did. The key difference though is that Roman Abramovich stuck in 40% of their wage bill every bloody month, and we don't do that. Do you know what I mean? So it doesn't work for me. So I'm underwhelmed and disappointed with that. I think with Conte leaving, you'd expect. I wanted to have at least when Pochettino got sacked, the next day it was like, boom, we got Mourinho. And regardless of what Mourinho turned out to be, I think it was decisive. So that's a bit of a disappointment. Can they get us top 4? Look, I mean, I'll always back, and this is where I become optimistic again, even though all doom and gloom, right? I always back us. I backed us last year. Most people that I speak to, a lot of people, you guys as well, didn't think that we could get top 4 last year, and we did. But that was with Conte in and a different momentum. I think that we've got some key players out this year, and that's going to hurt. Form's dropped off a cliff, like Matty, you just said about Kulusevski, for example. Son's been, let's have it right. Son's been woeful. We've lost Bentancur. Our captain's out. By the way, he's training again. He ain't said anything about this whole situation. He's our captain. That's what is going on. So I think it's going to be very, very tough. What I would say though, and this is quite interesting, and I didn't realise this, I don't know if anyone else has looked at the fixtures. The next fixture back for Newcastle is Manchester United, which means the next fixture back for Manchester United is Newcastle. I mean, so one of them 2 teams are going to drop points in the next fixture, and you couldn't make it up. The Spurs beat Southampton, right? Not only would we have gone 3rd, but the next fixture was Manchester United versus Newcastle. I mean, we could have gone clear of them. So, look, I think it is to play for, but I think for me, there's a wider issue here, Rick, which is I'm not that bothered.
That's really sad, isn't it? That's really
sad. I know.
That's really sad.
As a fan, yeah. I think I'd rather have a painful rebuild and get all the dross out of the way, all the World Trophy, all that. You're playing rubbish. You're not in Europe. I think I'd rather have that and just concentrate on winning a League Cup and an FA Cup and getting as high as we can in the league when we haven't got anything. And I know that sounds defeatist, but I think maybe that's what we need to have. It's a bit like the mouldy carpets, Matty, that you were talking about. We've just got to rip them up and start again from that perspective. So top 4, so what?
Dale, let me come over to you. You know what's really interesting for me? I still find it's quite fascinating that, obviously, from what we understand, again, according to reports, I must suggest this and obviously make that clear, that we understand Conte gave Spurs the blessing to allow Stellini to carry on in his role as obviously now what he is in terms of the acting interim manager with Ryan as the assistant. Do you have a concern, Dale, that the man that is now overseeing this, he was Antonio's number 2, and Antonio is now no longer here? This might sound really bad to say this, and again, I have to just ask this question because it might be on many people's minds that might not say it. Can we trust Dal Stellini to be able to give 100% to the job in which he came into the role with the head coach that's now left? Do you see where I'm coming from? Can we really expect Stellini to give absolutely everything for this role? Can he?
I think we can, because what you see in Stellini when he's been in control is he is a passionate man himself. You see his character. And now he has a position where he's been entrusted to do a job. And also, this is a job that him and Mourinho set out, and him and Conte set out to do together. So there is going to be a part of that pride to go, I want to finish the job. I want to do this. And I'm hoping that's the angle that he's going to come with and the attitude he comes with. Because top 4 is there to be taken. Lee, remember, I was with you last season, my man. I was saying we were getting top 4. I was screaming it loud and proud. This time, I feel it's going to work in a very weird way. I don't see it being the same way last season worked out, where we went and took top 4 and snatched it away. I feel like nobody wants it right now. I think the season is such a mess in terms of results. There's no consistency anywhere. And I think we may stumble into that position and get top 4 by default. That's the way I see it. I'd love that to be the case, but I feel it's going to be a default rather than a magical run of victories that Spurs put on great performances and we're all singing loud and proud. I feel it's going to be a very disjointed, messy end to the season, and results are going to be crazy for everybody, and we're going to stutter our way into the Champions League.
You know, I love that optimism towards the end there. Jay, to come around to you. Many are saying that if Stellini and Mason combined do get us top 4, should they be considered for the job? Which I find, again,
no.
No, I mean, I agree. An interesting ploy, but definitely not for me. But you know what's interesting, Jay? Obviously, we saw a lot from, again, after games. Stellini would come out and say that almost they had to be given the green light from Conte numerous times to make changes. And again, I just wonder, you know, they're going to be their own man now to some degree. You've said already tonight, Jay, because I think Lee asked you the question. You don't expect the style of football to change massively under them. So what's going to be different, or if anything's going to be different, Jay, to secure Spurs a top 4 finish? What do you think?
No, I don't think there is going to be anything different, and I just think it's so underwhelming. I mean, I think we're all sat here and we all feel incredibly underwhelmed that Stellini and Ryan Mason have been put in charge, and that's exactly how the players are going to feel. And I don't think there's going to be any sort of managerial bounce. I don't believe that. I think, obviously a bit has been made about Stellini ball. We obviously won these games, Marseille, Manchester City. But then I'm sure he was in charge, just him, for the Wolves game as well. When we lost 1-0, produced a very underwhelming performance. So, yeah, it's just, I think the absolute key word here is underwhelmed. And we all feel underwhelmed. The players are all going to feel underwhelmed. I would say with maybe Newcastle, obviously produced that fantastic win against Nottingham Forest, obviously a late win. You saw Alexander Isak kind of stepping up to the plate, a guy who we all know is a fantastic player and looks like maybe he might start to kick on now. But that's just a club that is just getting it absolutely spot on at the moment. Obviously, yes, they've got all this money, but they've got this plan in place. And I think they've just done such a great job in terms of recruiting who the manager wants. It's clear that Eddie Howe's getting in the players that he wants. And they're going in the right direction, and I think they're starting to kind of see the rewards from it. And I think that Newcastle will finish above us. I think Brighton can finish above us. I just think it's really underwhelming. I really can't put a positive spin on it at all, because it's Ryan Mason and Cristian Stellini. Like it's just so underwhelming. So it's gutting to be really disappointed like that, because I usually I'm a very optimistic supporter, but on this occasion, like there's nothing to be optimistic about. It's not going to be any different. I don't think Stellini, obviously, he's been working with Conte for most of his managerial, or his time as a coach, so he's going to got a lot of ideas from Conte. So it's all going to be the same. So yeah, unfortunately, I can't put a positive spin on it, and no chance of getting in the top 4. I really.
No, listen, Jay. I mean, listen, mate. We appreciate that honesty for sure. And let me come round to you. Here we are again. another manager seen off. Just can't make it up on this show. How many times have we done these conversations? Someone just put a comment in saying, "But my child is only, I mean, he's a newborn of 3-4 weeks. He would have seen off 3 managers by the time we get to the summer." I just, honestly, I've got no words for this football club. I really, really haven't, as to where we go and how we do it. But I mean, I've probably asked the same question to you, Ant, in terms of what comes next in these 9-10 games. Jay referenced it there. We saw obviously Spurs go out of the FA Cup under Stellini. We saw them put in that horrendous performance against Wolves to some degree as well.
Yeah.
Do you have any hope that they're going to galvanise that dressing room? Because I think that, listen, there may be a lift that Antonio Conte isn't there, given the nature of that explosive press conference and the way he labelled everybody selfish.
I'll tell you how Spursy will be. I bet Spursy will go on a 10-game unbeaten run. That's how Spursy.
Do you think? Do you think?
No, of course I'm joking. It's as if.
Well, I don't know anymore with this club. I don't know. I generally don't know. I don't know anymore.
We're so downbeat, right? And knowing how like they'll go on a 10-game unbeaten run. That's how Spursy we are. But I think for us, do I want top 4? No. Will we gain anything from it? No. Will the players be up for it? No. So I don't care. This is what I mean. If there was a new manager in this week who's got a plan and a vision, and the players have a nice little manager bounce, I'm all for it. But I don't want top 4. What, to go there and Champions League music on a Wednesday night? We go and can't beat an average AC Milan side.
And then we drop into Europa League and not going to take it seriously. So what's the point?
So exactly. So have 1 game a week. That's what we deserve at this present time.
So then, what you're ultimately saying, Ant, for you, I don't put words in your mouth. Are you saying that you just want to ultimately finish outside all those European places? Is that what you're saying?
Because of what we got, we never take it seriously, Rick. We never take it seriously. Champions League, I was there. Everyone on this panel were there against AC Milan. I'd rather have lost 1-0 and give it a go than draw 0-0 and to do what? Stumble out of the Champions League. We didn't. And the thing is, as Dow said, we stumbled across top 4 last season. We didn't batter teams. We didn't beat teams. We were waiting for them look down the road to lose and drop points. And that, to me, I'm fed up of our club and us fans relying on other teams to do us favours. And I'm fed up of it.
Yeah.
If I'm ready to lose my shit. That's why I'm holding back, because I'm just laughing, because if you don't laugh, you cry.
Yeah.
But there, mate, I'm pissed. I'm pissed off. Excuse my French.
No, listen, mate, you're well in your rights to be. I mean, Matt, many of the mentality of the club is that Champions League football to them is the equivalent of winning the league for the board. So it does feel like the club will only act when that top 4 place is in real severe danger of slipping away. Where I think the general vibe here, on this show as we bring it towards an end, is that if there was a new manager in the dugout, that would give us all such a big, big lift. But there doesn't seem to ever be a plan, a purpose, a vision for the now. And again, it's almost like, okay, wait till the summer. Sorry, Ant.
Sorry. I'm reading some of the comments, and everyone's entitled to their opinion. I'm reading, how can you not want a top manager without Champions League? I don't want Champions because we don't do anything with it. Okay, we don't go out and buy the players that these managers want. Okay, that's why I don't want us to scrape top 4 with this current squad, because people will go, "Oh, we did all right last season. We don't need to spend anymore." That's what's always happened. Conte wanted Bastoni, he got whoever. Mourinho wanted Skriniar, we got Roden. It's just the nature. It's just what we do. Stumble across top 4. Nah, mate. Nah, I'm not having that.
Can you, Matt, and yourself,
Chris?
Can you get yourself up, Matt, to mentally go for these last 10 games in the hope that we're going to really find a way now of qualifying for the Champions League? I get the general vibe that for everybody, that's not the be-all and end-all. I think if we were sitting with an FA Cup final to come, it would be a very much of a different mood, but we're not. What, for you, Matt, is going to make you feel any better in these next 10 games, if anything, at the moment?
Look, the last thing I want is a Europa League or a Conference League spot, because it's a distraction. Because we're not going to win it. Like Jamie said, we're not going to take it seriously. We're going to go to Paschal de Ferreira. We're going to get played off the park and we lose 2-0. We're going to get Mislav Orsic scoring hat-tricks against us on a Thursday night. It's just not going to happen. And I think what does happen when we get into those competitions is we think, oh, but maybe this year, oh, look who we're coming up against. Maybe this year we can do it. And every year we get beaten down. I'm kind of at the point where, and it's very similar to what Lee was saying. And yes, it sounds defeatist. It sounds like, you know, people always say we're settling for mediocrity. I just want to enjoy watching Tottenham. I just want to look forward to a Saturday, to a Tuesday night Premier League, whatever it is. I just want to look forward to actually watching that team go out on the pitch. And if Pochettino is the man to do that, do it. Bring him home. If it's Nagelsmann, do it. Like I can see us ending up in a situation where, similar to the Nuno managerial hunt, where it goes 1, 2, 3, 4 months. Look at some of the names that have been linked to us. Like Arne Slot, the Feyenoord manager. He's doing a fantastic job at Feyenoord. He's gone on and winning their first league, and I don't know how long, but how can you take an unproven manager like that and bring him into the Premier League, into this job of all jobs, the one that has been proven impossible for some of the greatest managers of the last decade or two? You know, just bring in someone who we know is going to play good football, someone who we know is going to bring a good atmosphere and a good vibe around the club, and just something positive. Like I'm gone beyond the point of, well, I want trophies, but I'm gone beyond the point of putting that at the top of my list of the next manager, because I just don't think it's going to happen. I just don't think we're at that point. This club is not set up to win. It's not set up to be successful. So look, let's just enjoy, like, the couple of times a year when I manage to get over at the stadium. I just want to enjoy that. I want to go over and know that I'm going to enjoy the football that we're watching. But the only other thing that can give me a boost is I've got a little Italian flag here, so I'm looking for a bit of a financial boost if anyone is interested. We got the face of an unnamed man on it as well. If anyone's
value that's just dropped now, I tell you. I don't know how much value that's just dropped. We're going to close it, guys, on these 3 quick fire questions I'm going to ask you all. Number 1, I want to know what your favourite moment of Antonio Conte's reign is, what your worst moment was, and who you want next. So we're going to go round and ask that. I know you're going to think on your feet here. So let's go to Jamie first. Jamie, your favourite, your worst moment of Antonio, and ultimately who you want next in the dugout.
Can I say when he was sacked as my favourite moment? No.
Okay.
I won't disrespect him that much, because he obviously last season did give us some special memories. I'm going to go for the Leicester game. That for me, when we kind of came back. Oh, sorry, I wanted to try and pick something different, and obviously there has been some really good games, but for me that was like a real special game, because it kind of showed the mentality that he kind of instilled in these players when he was fired up. You know, this was when he was really wanting to be in this job, when he was desperate to be here. It was that Leicester game. Instead of when they equalised, all the players ran to get the ball straight away. It was like the 95th minute or something. Players going and getting the ball. They want to go and get the win, and obviously went and did that. So for me, that was just such an amazing way to end the game as well. So yeah, Leicester winning in the last minute was definitely my favourite memory.
Okay, Joe, we'll stick with you only because of time. Worst moment, and then who you want next in the dugout. We're going to try and do all 3.
Oh, worst moment. Oh my gosh. The AC Milan game. The AC Milan game. I thought it was the most pathetic.
Which one?
Obviously the home game. I just thought I could say Sheffield United as well, because that was the angriest I've ever been as a Spurs fan, because of the manner of way we went out. But the AC Milan game, honestly, I was sat there. I went whole South stand up. I'm sat down. I just wanted to get out of the ground so badly. I wanted to go and support the team. He drained the life out of me. And I can't be in that position again. So it was that AC Milan game for sure.
And then who you want next, Jay?
Oh, sorry. I'm getting all the answers. Look, Levy's been given the most unbelievable open goal here, and he has to take the chance. He can't do a Jack Grealish against Italy. Has to score, and Nagelsmann has to be Nagelsmann. I think he literally ticks so many boxes. It's a guy we've wanted before. Has to be Julian Nagelsmann. It's not going to be Pochettino. I'm pretty sure it's not going to be Pochettino. I could be wrong. I think, Lee, you made the point about he's free. Like, he'd be in charge right now if it was going to be Mauricio Pochettino. They seem incredibly reluctant to do it. And do you know what? It'd be really angry. It would really make me so angry if in the summer, like come July, and Mauricio Pochettino is appointed, because he's free now. Like, you go and get him. If you want Pochettino, go and get him now. It will just show that they've got no real idea what they're doing, and if they get poached later on. But 100% has to be Nagelsmann for me. But will he come? I don't know.
Jay, you've been amazing. Please make sure you go check out more Jay stuff. Jamie Brown over at the Daily Hotspur. It's been great having Jay back on. Normally he's here for transfer specials. He's here for a manager special. There you go. Nature of Tottenham for you. The guys have been quite lucky here because I've had a lot of comments that have come in that might actually have changed their minds of what their worst, best, and who they want next in. So we'll go next to Matt. Matt, for you, we'll ask you your favourite moment, worst moment of Antonio Conte's reign, and finally, who you want next in the dugout. Over to you, Matt.
For my favourite moment, can I put like a 9-day spell in there?
You can do whatever you want, mate.
Beating Arsenal on the Thursday, watching them capitulate at St James's Park on the Monday, and then seeing Sonny win the Golden Boot the next Sunday at Carrow Road. That was special. It was so many beautiful things just coming together. That was an incredible week. Now the Sunday in the middle where we needed like an 80th minute penalty to beat Burnley was one of the worst days of my life trying to get through that game. But that was the moment where it kind of felt maybe Conte's going to do this. Maybe Conte is the man to actually make this happen for Spurs, because we never should have been near that top four. Never should have even been in with a chance of getting it. And with the help of Arsenal down the road, we did manage to get it. But then in terms of the worst moment, God, there's a few. The two cup exits, the domestic cup exits were absolutely awful. But I'll go with that 4-1 at Leicester. I'll kind of make it a bit a full circle with Jamie's one there as well. To go to this team that like as mentioned, only won once or twice in the calendar year, and not just lose, but to concede 4 goals and to make them look like the best thing since sliced bread was absolutely awful.
Yep.
The next man that I go back and forth in this, and I've kind of gone back and forth in it a few times during the show as well. But for now, I'm going to say Poch, because he's the one. He's what Tottenham's about. He just gets it. He gets it. He loves the club. We love him. Let's make it happen.
Matt, it's been a real pleasure, mate. Thank you so much. It's been a late night shift. Diamonds, honestly.
Sure.
Listen, in a perverse way, it's always therapy when you come off here. You feel like you've gone through quite a cathartic experience, which many of our viewers are experiencing right now and telling us, so thank you so much. I'm going to ask Ant now next, because I think if I make Ant wait to the end, he might actually combust and he might go absolutely mental. So for the sake that I want to keep this man's profession, which has been top draw tonight, and let's come around to you, mate. Your best, your worst, and your man you want next in the dugout.
My best was Arsenal at home, 3-0. I've never seen an atmosphere like that in all the years I've been going to Tottenham. Proper. Worst, where do I start? How many cup exits?
How many lower league cup exits out?
Nottingham Forest.
Euro, yes.
Yeah.
Euro. There was Middlesbrough as well.
Middlesbrough. Forest.
Yeah.
You lost the plot there, Rickster.
I did.
But I think for me, the Sheffield United game this year, I was livid. Who do I want to come in? I mean, I don't know, Gary Megson, Steve Bruce. I don't know who's out there really.
Martin Yole,
Ian Holloway. Ian Holloway. I think Ian Holloway would get get Spurs what Spurs mean to us fans. Yeah.
Do you know what? I've come to a point of the show now where honestly, I don't know if everyone's being serious anymore because of what this club's done to us.
Listen,
I genuinely can't work it out.
In, as long as they can get these players to play. Ted Lasso, he'll do an amazing job.
Mickey Wallace.
Yeah.
Honestly, Anna, let me ask it for serious now. Who do you generally, in your heart of hearts now, do you think will make you happy again watching Tottenham and will actually make you believe that we could be successful? Was that impossible under this board for you?
It is, Rick. It's drained the life out of me. For what manager do I want? Do I want an arm around the shoulder manager? Do I want a manager that tells it as it is? Do I want the manager the players buy into? I don't know. It's Poch, great. But if he don't have a good run next season, if he's there, everyone's going to be on his back. And it's that whole thing, never go back to an ex, so to speak. I tell you, I wouldn't mind. I mean, Vincent Kompany's being up there a lot. I've seen a lot of Vincent Kompany. I'm not saying he'll come to Spurs, but I think if he did come to Spurs, it's one of them things where it'll always be the Man City job. So I think he'll never come. And I think give it to, try Nagelsmann. Julian Nagelsmann.
Okay, I mean, and mate, honest as always, Anne. I can tell you, mate, there's lots of that. I really appreciate your honesty on Last Word on Spurs. You don't hold back. Always tell as it is, mate. Thank you so much. It's been a late night, so I really appreciate it. Dal, we're going to come over to you, and then Macca to close it. Dal, You've been part of this last one of Spurs journey now for a while. You've overseen some really, really horrendous nights. You've been there for some good times as well. We mustn't obviously underplay those as well. Give me for you, Dal, your favourite moment under Conte, your worst, and ultimately who you feel will make you happy next, if that can be possibly done for you.
I think looking at everyone's moments so far, there have been some crackers. I think what I would say is hearing the whole stadium singing his name when we all were behind him. There was such a buzz around the project at that point. And yeah, that's my highlight for me. Hearing Antonio belt it out around the stadium was a beautiful thing. So yeah, that's my highlight, when we were all bought in and was all very excited about the project we were going on. Worst moment, it's got to be the AC Milan game, that second game. Just wow, I've never been so disappointed in the performance, and just seeing everyone check out. Everybody checked out, and I was like, oh wow, we have a big problem here. And yeah, that's a sad moment. And I think I put this in the group, and about, I think the circus is about to start. We're about to have madness. So in terms of managers, who would I want? I think we're about to see a manager merry-go-round about to happen. And I think that I'm going to throw a real wild one out there. And I think we could possibly end up with Potter, because I think there's going to be a lot of movement at the end of the season. And I think because we don't know who we want, and that's very clear. The board do not know who they want. And I think it's going to be how the house of cards move around, and then who is available and who wants it. And I think that's what we're going to be left with. It's going to be, not saying Potter's a bad choice, but it's going to be about how everything else moves, and then where we make our move. We're not going to be front foot forward. We're not going to take control of the situation. We're going to be in the circus. So Spurs fans, hold on to your hats. It's going to be a bumpy ride. Don't book a holiday too far away for the summer. Keep your mobile phone fully charged. Make love to the missus, your significant other. Get a cuddle. Do something sweet. Don't make a baby like Ricky Sacks. Do the good things, but it's going to be mental. We're in for a mad one. I'm calling it right now.
Damn, mate. I think you've just summed up my life there in the last couple of seconds.
We know what happens when the cameras go off, Rick. We know what happens.
Bro, honestly. Yeah. It all goes to pot. And whenever I'm a child, Spurs sack the manager. You just can't make this up when they go in the Super League. You just really can't make this up. The wonderful Darren Hartman there. Many asking for my opinion. I will just throw my... Again, I'll throw my moments in very quickly. We'll go to Macca to close it. For me, I think, that home game against Arsenal was just absolutely electric. There was a real genuine belief in that stadium that, although that night we didn't actually secure top four, we was going to secure top four. And I think ultimately that kind of tells you everything, that we were buying into a concept even last season where it even wasn't a trophy, but we were happy because we were seeing a real decent brand of football. And I just want to say one thing. I know we can't forget back in the last season, we were battering teams and there was a decent brand of football on offer. And then I think that's the most frustrating thing, that how it's gone from that to a South Korean pre-season where the players would, worked up and down. And you think, what was this all for? Then we had the summer transfer window. You have to maybe argue that the decisions in that window may have also been the catalyst to why we find ourselves where we are now. Worst moment, I mean, you guys saw what I was like at Forest. I mean, I think you could pick any of them, Forest or Sheffield United. I wouldn't say AC Milan as much. The domestic cups really, really hurt me. I don't think we were ever going to win the Champions League. So for me, pick them up. Forest, Sheffield United, still not over either of them. I'll be honest, I'm still not the same as Ant. Still not over either of those cup exits. Spurs should be having a semi-final and an FA Cup. That's what Stellini and Mason should be having to play for, but we're not. And we're 10 games left trying to find a way to finish in the top four, which I think, as some of the boys have said here, is not the be and end all for them. In terms of who I want next, do you know what? I can't be a hypocrite. On this show, and Jamie was there and Lee was there at the time, I said Maurizio, it wasn't working and it had to stop. But I think he's the only man that would appease a percentage of this fan base to bring back in, that would get fans believing again of a project. But what does scare me, as I've said to Anne, and we've had the call on this, that there's a lot of players that might find their way back to the football club again that maybe weren't good enough first time. And that is the biggest worry. Does he get the time? I think he does with the fans. I think he does with the fans to some degree. Not all fans, I must say. I know there's some out there that don't want Maurizio back, and that's a real big split. And that's why I think, as Jamie said, they may go for someone like Julian Nagelsmann, who we understand will be available in the summer for no fee. I think Spurs would have had to pay a fee at the moment had they want Nagelsmann through the door. And he's just come off the back of a job in Bayern Munich. So again, he might just want some time to reset before bringing Tottenham into his life. So look, that's my view. Lee, we're going to close it with you. Your favourite Antonio Conte moment, your worst, and ultimately what you want next.
Can you hear me okay? Because I've had to take my earbuds out because they failed.
No, we've got you. I think we've gone past that point now.
Yeah. Arsenal at home last season, the 3-0. Sheffield United away, freezing my fanny off with 0 shots on target for like 70 minutes. And Maurizio Pochettino. There you go. I'll keep it succinct because I've done all my talking. That's the reality. I want change. Something needs to change in this football club, and this football club needs to make a proper decision on the next manager. And for me, the season's already written off because they've decided to keep interim managers in charge. But look, if they go for Nagelsmann because he's a nice shiny magpie thing, and like, hey, look, there's a nice new shiny manager, or if they won't go and pay a release clause out for him because they obviously don't want to pay the release clause if that's the situation. I personally think Matt, you mentioned this earlier, and you read it out. I think, Rick, about Paratici. If he's in court tomorrow, I think that the reason why Poch ain't here is because there's a director of football in place, and I don't think you come and manage under this hierarchy of what's going on. So there's a lot of stuff going on behind the scenes. So maybe for the longer term, maybe this is the right decision to do an interim. But for me, it was Arsenal, Sheffield United, Pochettino.
Sure, not often in the last 5, 6, 7 years doing Last Word on Spurs, I see Lee as generally broken as this, which is a true indictment.
I've never seen Lee so down in my life, mate.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I'll be honest with you, lads. I was in bed when the news broke, so like, so it's nothing to do. It's nothing to do with Spurs. I'm just absolutely knackered.
Yeah, look, I think for all of our sakes, for the viewers and listeners that have been incredibly loyal tonight, it's been over 1,400 of you watching us live. Again, I must say thank you so much for all of your support, not just today, throughout this season. I mean, your support for this show has just been, and for Last Word on Spurs in general, has just been unbelievable. I travel, take transport. Many people that stop me and say how much they love the show and love the people on the show. And there's so much love for everybody on here. Again, I just have to say, the show is not the same without the wonderful guests that make the time up. We're here at nearly 20 to 1 in the morning, and these wonderful people are giving up so much of their time. And it's all for their love of this football club. So I just want to say again, massive, massive thank you to our wonderfully loyal viewers and listeners, to our wonderful panel of this show. We've had the brilliant Matty Hayes. Matt, thank you so much. Been a pleasure having Matt back on. The wonderful singer-songwriter Antony Costa from Blue, always telling it as it is, very, very honest. The brilliant Jamie Brown over at the Daily Hotspur, always telling us some of us what we want to hear, but also making us feel that hopefully there's nothing too horrendous around the corner. We'll wait and see. And of course, the brilliant Darren Hartman, British actor Darren Hartman, always, as he always is, hopefully giving us some hope and optimism to come. And even he's been quite low tonight at times. That's what this club has done. And the wonderful, crazy train instructor, conductor, Mr. Lee McQueen. Guys, I think we're going to be back with you sooner than probably what you realise, where this Last Word on Spurs takes us and what this show does to us. But from all the guests here,
see you tomorrow, viewers and listeners.
Viewers, listeners, from all of us here at Last Word on Spurs, please, as always, keep safe, keep well, and as always, come on you Spurs. Thank you so much.